Unfortunately, my granddad died in December. It was the day we buried him, and we sat there and we were chatting away and blah, 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 drawing bits on bits of paper. I was like, yeah, can do this. I toyed with it thinking, bear in mind we've just come out of a global pandemic. I'm literally chucking everything at what I was doing. I was only ever going to have 1 or 2 lorries, and thought that'll be it. Don't want to be greedy. 1 or 2 lorries, live comfortably, have somebody work alongside me, an hour in the office on a Friday night, job done. 2 years down the line with 6 tippers, an Arctic, and another one on the way.
Welcome to the Business Sense podcast. I'm Garry Crosby. This is the podcast where we make sense of the business journey by talking to owners about what they've learned along the way. Let's jump into today's episode. Adam, thanks for joining us on the Business Sense podcast.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good to see you, and looking forward to an interesting conversation about your business, what you've learned along the way, and maybe a few other things. I want to start with the industry in general. So I get the impression, I'm not in the industry myself, but I get the impression it's pretty tight. There's probably lots of competition. There's lots of government regulation. What's the best way to make money in the haulage business?
Cutting out the middleman. In my eyes, we find as hauliers, my other competition, we work together. I always prefer to work with somebody or work alongside somebody instead of against them.
Yeah.
That you've got other people that you've got one of my competitors who'll go to the quarry, they'll order 1,000 ton of material with the quarry, and instead of doing it themselves because they're too busy, the quarry will then come to me and ask, right, can you supply 200 ton a day over a week? Yeah, I can do that. And then you get the paperwork come through, you look at the paperwork, and it's for Rose Aggregates, for example, in Peterborough.
Yeah.
So the quarry want their 50p pound a ton.
Yeah.
Rose Aggregates want their 50p pound a ton.
Yeah.
And then we're left at the bottom of the food chain. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you even 50p a ton over 1,000 ton, obviously that's £500 over the course of a week. We really struggle with that in this industry at the minute, and people sort of penny pinching literally to sort of 5p, 10p a ton.
So profit on profit on profit. There's people all along the chain trying to do that. Yeah. And what about the other thing that caught my eye the other day was accreditation and all these different schemes that you can get involved in. FORS is one of them. What do you think about that?
FORS is something I'm working towards at the minute with my transport manager.
Yep.
It's not something I've got yet.
Right.
There are a lot of things lorries have got to have to be FORS registered, and a lot of paperwork you've got to have in place ready to be FORS registered. But I'm sort of one step ahead of the game. So when I first set up in April 21, I started with that mindset that I was FORS registered. So
what's the benefit to you to be FORS registered then?
It's an accreditation, so you go for big jobs like the A14 expansion, for example. When that happened, that you needed to be FORS registered for. If you go for things with Skanska highways, those sorts of things, that your company's FORS registered, but your lorry is at a standard that is acceptable to go on to these jobs.
It's an industry scheme.
Yeah.
It's not a government regulation.
No, it's an industry scheme. It's not a government regulation. I'm not FORS registered at the minute, but there's different standards. You've got bronze, silver, and gold.
Right.
Obviously, bronze being the entry level, and you can go up and.
So the advantage to you is you can get jobs with bigger main contractors because they're going to demand to see that.
Yeah, I could gain bigger contracts with these accreditations that you can get.
And there's another one that's free, isn't it? The DBSA one. What's that all about?
Not something I've come across. I've looked at quite a few. You've got like your FORS. You put me on the spot, and I can't think the other ones are because I was looking at one yesterday.
DBSA is
Yeah,
the government scheme,
your
isn't
government one, and you've got the CHAS one as well, which is more construction.
Yeah.
Construction as well, and then you've got DVSA earned recognition as well, which is obviously government recognition through the DVSA.
Right.
And if you're going down the A1 or the A52 up at Grantham, and you've got DVSA recognition, they stick your number plate into their computer. Oh yeah, Davis-Wright haulage has got DVSA recognition.
Yeah.
We'll check his vehicle checks from the garage, and we don't need to give him a tug.
Okay. So those things sound like they're adding costs to all sides of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I think your fours is around about £800.
Right.
Starting, but then obviously as a renewal, a renewal thing each year. And the earned recognition, literally I've just signed up this morning for my office manager to go on a webinar next week to start looking into how we go about doing it.
And then the other thing that I spotted, as once I knew that we were going to be having a chat, there's all of this stuff around what you have to do to the trucks to protect vulnerable road users. Yeah. What's happening in that environment?
That's part of your fours thing with your side rails.
Yeah.
You can have put on. I've got a chap in Peterborough I'm just in discussions with at the minute about having some signage put down the sides of the lorries about keeping away. It's written into my load policies, my tipping policies, etc., about making sure that you are a minimum of 15 metres away when that lorry's tipping.
Right. And is it this kind of regulation, for vulnerable road users, is it about, protecting cyclists coming up the inside of the truck?
Cyclists coming up the inside. It's
people being reversed into and all that sort of stuff?
Cyclists are a big one.
Yeah.
And pedestrians as well, walking down the sides of lorries, footpaths.
Right.
But one of the biggest ones is ground workers on sites.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
That's a massive one at the minute. There's been quite a few in the last 12 months that have flagged up.
Right. What do they call those people who manoeuvre vehicles around sites?
Banksman.
Banksman's got a strange name. They still exist, do they?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do still exist. And a lot of your bigger sites or customers or whatever, they will not let you reverse or even move without a banksman. Some even going forward, some of them you've got to have a banksman to go to where you're going, and they will literally walk you to the exact spot on the site.
Yeah, makes sense. I was in aviation for most of my life. We always had somebody waving at us to tell us where to go in aeroplanes. So, so the business is fairly new, but I always like to explore that moment in your head that must have happened when you go, I can do this on my own. What happened to make you go, right, I'm going to set Davis-Wright haulage up?
So I used to work for a rather large competitor in the Cambridgeshire area.
Right.
I worked for him, got furloughed.
Right.
Due to obviously COVID.
Yeah.
I used to drive a sort of specialised concrete wagon called a volumetric concrete mixer. There, I got furloughed, came back, and during COVID, they sold them all, got rid of them.
Right.
So they put me onto what was a barrel mixer, and I was like, nah, not happening. Not enjoying it.
Yeah.
I've got at the time a fiance at home, two very young twins.
Yeah.
I'm out sort of 14, 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
I then was luckily enough, I got offered an opportunity to go self-employed, driving a tipper for somebody, and I worked alongside that gentleman and his son. Did that for 6 months as self-employed. I'd set up a company called ADW Haulage, which is the initials of my name.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, my granddad died in December, and went round to my neighbours, and we were sat there, and it was the day we buried him, and we sat there and we were chatting away and blah, 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 blah. We'd had a fair amount to drink, would be an understatement. and we were drawing bits on bits of paper. I was like, yeah, can do this.
Yeah.
So sat and worked all the maths side of it out and all the other bits of it and the finances, because you've got to have a certain amount of money in the bank. You've got to buy a lorry. And then sorted it out, bought a lorry, applied for an operator's license.
Yeah.
Waited and waited for that, and then went on the road on the 19th of April 2021, which would have been Grandad's 100th birthday.
It sounds like you gave him a good send-off there.
Yes.
So
definitely.
The entrepreneurial spark comes, as many great ideas do, when people have had a couple of drinks, they're feeling quite relaxed.
Yeah.
And as you woke up the following morning, you were thinking, right, we're onto something here.
I toyed with it, thinking, bear in mind we've just come out of a global pandemic. It was, I'm literally chucking everything at what I was doing. I was only ever going to have 1 or 2 lorries, and thought that would be it.
Yeah.
Don't want to be greedy. 1 or 2 lorries, live comfortably, have somebody work alongside me, an hour in the office on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Job done.
Yeah.
No. No.
So what was the reality?
Well, the reality is we're 2 years down the line with 6 tippers, an Arctic, and another one on the way.
Right.
Quite scarily. And what I turned over in the first year, I thought, well, I've done that with 1. What can I do with 2? And I was in the office watching the figures whirling round and thinking, well, let's not stop. Let's carry on. I mean, my wife would probably tell you something different, because I've sat and worked 18 hours a day for probably the last 2 years, and enough's enough sort of thing, which is why I've now put office staff in place before I buy any more lorries, because I can't deal with the demand of it by myself.
I mean, it's fascinating for me as a coach to hear that kind of mindset, which was, A, I think I can do this myself. B, I'm going to get it set up and get moving. And C, I'm not going to stop, because I can see that there's good reason to continue to grow the company, and then put support around yourself. Just to crystallize them, what would you say the main challenges have been in this first few years?
The biggest ones is obviously being new in business, is credit, finance.
Right.
You're not talking and going and buying a car which is 15,000 quid. We're talking lorries that are upwards. Some of them are upwards of 75 grand plus, and that's not even new. They're second hand.
Wow.
An example, I spoke to somebody the other day about ordering a brand new one. One, you're looking at 2025 before you can get one.
Right.
And they're 160,000 plus VAT.
Wow.
But they want their 10% deposit now.
Yes. Yeah. So challenges around finance.
Yeah.
How did you overcome those challenges then? What was the key there to unlocking it? Now you've got a fleet of 6 plus 1.
Relationships between your customers and your suppliers. It's a very hard, even now I still think it's still a very hard industry. I can go and set an account up with somebody and maybe only get a £5,000 credit limit because I'm a new customer.
Yeah.
But £5,000 in construction industry and haulage doesn't go very far at all.
So challenges around finance. Was there ever a moment in that first couple of years where you thought, maybe I should go back to work for somebody else?
No. Wouldn't do it.
No.
Wouldn't do it at all now. I mean, I'm up at 6 most mornings.
Yeah.
And I'm now in a position where if I want to work till lunchtime, I can work till lunchtime. It's 25 degrees outside. Go and play a round of golf, and I know that 3 hours later, I'm back in the office, and I make that time up.
Yes.
I've got a lot more freedom than I did then when ever working for anybody else. And I enjoy the stress.
Right.
I thrive on. The stress is the wrong word. I thrive under pressure.
Yes.
So if somebody says to me, "Can you do that?"
Yeah.
Normally, come hell or high water, I will find a way
Mm.
around it. I mean, I took a couple of phone calls on the way here for some stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll sort it."
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
And then how do we work out how to do it?
Yeah. I don't know how much you've looked into it, but my down the sides of my lorries is obviously the company name of doing it the right way.
Mm-hmm. With a W.
With a W.
Yeah.
Well, Wright is my wife's surname,
Mm-hmm.
and Davis is my surname. Unfortunately, when my wife was 14 weeks pregnant, we lost her dad as well.
Right.
And she has a company based in Stamford, and her strapline is doing it the right way.
Yeah.
But obviously, we were married before. Before I took her strapline as well.
So that's interesting. Financial challenges, but a great deal of freedom and choice around how you use your time.
Yeah.
I guess you've had to find other people to join you in the business. What do you look for when you're trying to bring people alongside you? Because you've clearly got a certain kind of approach and attitude to the work.
It depends. Drivers, I'm lucky now that I'm established enough. I even took a phone call this morning whilst sat in the barber's. Somebody ringing me asking me for a job.
Yeah.
I won't use agencies. I believe that there's enough people born in themselves that if I stick an advert out on Facebook or somewhere, that I'll find the right person. Prime example, a few weeks ago I went and bought a second-hand Karcher steam mop thing off of Facebook.
Yes.
Chatting to the bloke about it. He said, "Oh, what are you buying it for?" "I use it to clean my lorries." He's like, "Who do you work for?" I was like, "Myself, I own a haulage company."
Yeah.
4 weeks later, he's working for me.
Wow.
He's just passed his class 1.
Yeah.
He's only driving a tipper at the minute, but he's just passed his class 1 and great asset to the team.
So what was it there? Because a lot of my clients, they bring people in on a CV and they've got certain qualifications or certain experience, but sometimes it's about attitude.
It's a chat. Right? I'm not bothered about CVs.
No.
That people will send them to me with experience, but I'll go and meet you down the pub and have a drink. And if we get on and you've got the experience, I'll do the relevant checks I need to do, driving license, your CPC, everything else. And then I'll send them out with either myself or one of my other lads to see what they're like. And then if we like it, they get the appropriate training. Yeah. They get signed off and away they go.
And then you said you'd brought other people into the business in the office to support you. What was the tipping point there for you? Because, the business owners have a lot of demands on their time. What was the trigger for you to say, right, I need somebody else?
The first person I took on was my little sister.
Right.
She does 2 days a week for me. That started in January when I was like, I can't keep up with the phone calls, the emails, the invoicing.
Yeah.
People requesting this bit of paperwork, people wanting that bit of paperwork. She'd come out of a job where she was working 3 days a week, and I said, right, well, I need somebody. You need a job that's you can work remotely, but I do need you to come down to Bourne once a month just so we can go over bits and bobs where we need to.
Yeah. So she's somewhere else in the country?
She lives in Retford at the minute with my mum.
Not too far away.
And then in September, she's moving to London.
So there's that moment where you thought, I can't do this all myself. I can't still be there at 9 o'clock at night doing invoicing and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a bit more than that, probably like 2, 3 in the morning.
2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then that must have prompted you to get this extra person in then again.
So I've now got Charlotte in the office full time. Her job title's head of operations, so she will deal with the day-to-day phone calls from the lads if they've got a problem. She sorts tickets. She's drafting invoices. And then she's also, I said to you earlier on, she's going to be doing her transport manager CPC. So we can bring it all in-house.
And does that feel like that's about right for now?
For the time being, we've just signed a 5-year lease on an office in Bourne.
Right.
We've actually this morning just bought the office furniture, but I have bought an additional office desk and chair just in case.
Who's that for?
I don't know yet.
Who's that for? Who's the next recruit?
Well, me. There's obviously me. There's Charlotte. I don't know yet. I've got loads of ideas whizzing around in my head about what the next step will be.
That was actually going to be my next question. Because I'm always, there's a journey here that you've been on, and you've had your entrepreneurial spark, and you've started to grow the company. Where do you want to take it in the next few years?
I don't know. You never say never, because I don't like odd numbers.
Right. Okay.
So I've got 7 trucks on the road at the minute.
Right.
8 doesn't feel big enough.
Right.
So do I go to 10 and stop, and then do I start renewing the fleet? Because some of them they're approaching sort of 6-7 years old.
Yeah.
Or do I carry on growing? You don't know what's around the corner. Somebody could ring me and say, can you price this job?
Yeah.
And they say, oh yeah, guaranteed work for 3 years.
Yeah. And
then I have no option but to expand or subcontract it out.
When you started the business, and sometimes people get into the kind of momentum of it, but when you started the business, did you have something in mind then? Was there kind of like, right, I need to make this much money or have this much size or time?
It was never about the money. It was about providing a good service.
Yeah.
If you rang me tomorrow or today and said, Adam, can you supply me 100 ton of limestone tomorrow? I would be, yeah, you will get 100 ton of limestone tomorrow. It was never. Yes, everybody has to make a profit somewhere along the line, because you don't do. That's why I'm in business. I'm not here to do it for nothing or to run at a loss. But it's about providing a good, reliable service to customers or my customers. That you hear bugbears of people and everything throughout the whole industry. Or people they're promising you this and you're not delivering it.
Yeah.
So part of me was about delivering a service to customers and making sure it was done in the right way at the right price.
Okay. So the company, it sounds like the company will grow.
Yes. I won't stop.
I mean, it's a similar sort of question really, but I'm curious, and that is, what's driving you on? Because there could be a point where you go, at this point, I'm drawing this much money out of the business, and that's good for me, it's good for my family, and so on and so forth. What drives you to keep going?
I don't like to sit still. It's part of the reason. So if I got to a certain size of, say, 10 trucks, there'll come a point where, what will I do? Because I shall put processes into place, digital invoicing and ticketing. Yeah. So invoices are already done online, but there are systems out there where I can do a job. Yeah. They sign it and it automatically uploads onto computer, and then that would save me however many hours a day or a week. So I'm then, what do I do?
Do you ever see yourself running the company from a golf course in Tenerife?
Be lovely. Bit windy in Tenerife, but maybe somewhere else. Yes, at some point. I'm 38 years old at the minute. I wouldn't want to take a back step just yet. Not only being 2.5 years old.
No.
But my wife's company's 7 years old, and she's only just sort of beginning to take a backwards step.
Interesting. Yeah. So there's always going to be obstacles in the way. There's always going to be things that can trip you up in business. Can you see any obstacles in the way of this growth that you've talked about? Because clearly there's a entrepreneurial spirit there to build this company up.
The cost of living is obviously a big problem in the game at the minute, because of the housing market and stuff. It's sending things up for me. Like the cost of tyres is just absolutely crazy. Yeah, I won't even begin to tell you what my tyre bill was last week. But diesel is gradually sort of coming down and stabilising.
Yeah.
Because diesel trucks aren't cheap to fill and to run. But no, as long as sort of the world stables itself out and levels itself out,
Yeah.
I can't see any reason what other obstacles would be put in there.
You can see lots of work coming. There's always the quarries are always busy.
I've got all sorts of things in the back of my head and in the pipeline, and there are ways to diverse.
Yeah.
In the industry, I mean, like my Arctic, for example, if all of a sudden the aggregate work he does dries up, he can drop his trailer and I can put him another trailer on the back, and he can go and move containers from A to B if I needed him.
Yeah.
Needed him to.
Yeah. That's interesting. And the other thing that I was curious about is that, business owners themselves go on a growth path. I'm just wondering, as you look at yourself and think about the next 4 or 5 years for you, how do you change as this company gets bigger and bigger and bigger?
I'd like to say I'd be less stressed.
Yes.
Myself personally.
Yeah.
There will be, at some point, I imagine I'll have to have either an office manager or another director bring another director into the company. Who that is or when that is, I don't know. But I genuinely don't know what's around the corner. I mean, we could have this chat next year and I could have doubled in size.
Yeah, I can imagine that, actually. Yeah. But, we're all on a personal learning journey, and sometimes, certainly my clients, they'll look at themselves and go, where I am right now, I can do my £2 million business and that's fine. But actually, if I want a £5 million business, I've got to be different in some way. And that's always a journey to go
on. I like to try and think that if I can do, I know what I turned over last year, and I've set myself to double that this year. But to do that, I've got to make sure I'm doing the right things, and I know that I'm already doing the right things and speaking to the right people and where I need to be. That turnover becomes easier because obviously I'm growing in size, because since the end of the last financial year, I've bought another 2 trucks. But it's all well and good having the trucks, but I've got to make sure that the work's there for those 2 trucks.
So you end up doing a different thing every day. You're not, your hands aren't dirty, as it were. You're thinking
no, they are dirty
strategically about financing and
I'm all of it.
You're all of it.
I'm all of it. I was in Peterborough at 7:00 yesterday morning fixing a broken lorry. Driver rang me. Oh, this has happened. Right, okay. Half hour, I'll be there. An hour later, he's back on the road.
I imagine there'll be a size of company in the future where that's just not going to be possible.
I've always said I'd like to be hands-on. I still go down the yard at least twice a week to go and see the lads in the morning. So I'll be down there 5:15 in the morning, go and see them, spot check their lorries, make sure that they're doing what they should be, doing. But I actually said to Charlotte in the office, I don't want to be a size where I'm out of the picture. Okay. I want the drivers or even the office staff, whoever, to be able to come say to me,
yes,
Adam, I've got a problem, can you help me? I don't want to be sat in the ivory tower out the way where they need to speak to Charlotte in the office because they feel that they can't speak to me. Family run doesn't. I don't want to get to a point in the business where I feel that it's not a family run company.
How important is time for you, though, in terms of you being able to, get some time back? Family's very young.
That's one of the reasons I took Charlotte on, because I've had a thick ear from not just the wife, a few people about you're working too much, you're doing this, you're doing 16, 18 hours a day in the office. And we're getting there, we're working towards it. And I think what will help massively is when the office opens in Bourne, that I'll leave there at 5:30, the door will shut, and I won't be able to do anything because at the minute the office is at the bottom of the garden.
Right. Okay. That's
getting some time back will be huge.
good separation there
Yes.
between the office and home.
Yeah.
That's great. Lots of good lessons there for business owners, and lots of ideas about entrepreneurship and things. I just want to ask you one final question, and that is, take yourself back to 2020 as you were beginning to set this all up. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to yourself back then?
Myself.
To the younger Adam.
Oh.
As you set out on this business journey,
Yeah.
Adam, knowing what I know now in 2023, just bear this in mind.
I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah?
Yeah. If I knew what I knew now,
Yeah.
I'd have done it years ago.
Now there's a lesson for everybody. Yeah. Don't wait.
Don't wait. Don't think you can't do it.
Mm.
Because all it took was a drunken conversation.
Isn't that see, that's fascinating. And that's good advice to anybody who might be sitting watching this thinking, I don't know whether I'm ready to start a business or not. Because the answer is,
you don't try, you don't know.
Yeah.
I could have packed up a year later and gone, I've tried.
Mm.
And now I am 2.5 years later, 7 lorries on the road.
Yeah, indeed. Great story, Adam. I'm so pleased you came in to talk
Thank
to
you.
us, and I really appreciate your honesty in describing your business journey. Loads of lessons in there for business owners. Thank you.
Thank you.